Hi everyone, my name is Megan and I'm a student at Western University in London, Ontario. In our lab, we take a practice-based research approach to engage in collaborative partnerships with clinicians. Practice-based research, or PBR, is an active collaboration between stakeholders. In our case, it's a partnership between speech-language pathologists and researchers. PBR creates knowledge at the point of implementation to use in a clinical setting. Often in educational settings, SLPs create assessments and early interventions to fit the service delivery model at their school board. Questions can arise surrounding the effectiveness of these practices, and a partnership between SLPs and researchers can allow for projects to determine the efficacy of these board-designed tools. These partnerships can create effective tools for practice. However, establishing and maintaining these partnerships can be a complicated process. More recently, research has begun to identify facilitators and barriers to these types of partnerships, and they've also looked at key considerations in initiating, establishing, and maintaining these partnerships. In our research, we've partnered with SLPs working at a school board, and we've helped them to validate a tool that they've used in practice. Aside from that project, we're interested in looking at the established partnership that we created and understanding more about it. We had two objectives. The first was to evaluate the experience of the clinicians and the researchers engaging in the PBR partnership. And the second was to identify key components in partnership initiation and maintenance. We took two approaches to collect this qualitative data. The first was a perceptual mapping activity where we had 6 SLPs from the school board and myself and Lisa Archibald, who was the PI of the project, and we all participated in this activity. The goal of the activity was to identify facilitators and barriers in the partnership, and then to engage in a discussion of how each of these factors influenced one another. The steps of the activity are listed on the slide. You can go back and read those later if you wish. This activity took 2 hours and 30 minutes in total. The second method was a semi-structured interview. I engaged in one semi-structured interview with 2 SLPs from the school board. I interviewed the head of the speech and language department and our team lead from the SLPs at the school board. The purpose of this activity was to gain a more in-depth understanding of the facilitators and barriers, as well as have a discussion around important considerations in the initiation, maintenance, and evaluation of the partnership. This interview lasted for 1 hour and 15 minutes. So as I mentioned, the goal of the activity was focused on facilitators and barriers, and also understanding what was important to initiating and maintaining the partnership. So it's not surprising that these were the overall themes that we pulled from the data. Both the perceptual mapping activity and the semi-structured interview were verbatim transcribed by a research assistant, and then I used the in vivo software to code the transcripts. So on the screens I'll show you, I'll just orient you to them, and then we'll go through it. So I have 4 different results slides that we'll look at. What you're seeing is this in the circles is the open code. So this is the raw code when we went through the data. From these open codes, I developed axial codes, where we grouped many open codes together, and then from that, the overall theme. So in the lighter box, the box that is less saturated, those are our axial codes leading to the overall theme of, in this case, is facilitators. So for this facilitator slide, I'll go through the axial codes, and I'll also just draw your attention to a few of the themes that I've highlighted in yellow. So some of the axial codes and the themes that came out when we're looking at facilitators for the partnership were the overall team. And in this case, something I've highlighted is our champions. So at the school board, we were very lucky to have a team of champions, and without them, this project wouldn't have been possible. Next was the importance of communication, the external support that we had. So in addition to the great group of SLPs we had at the school board, we also had support from others working in the school board. So this was administrative support, and they were very available to us throughout the project, which was very important. The next was having a very well-defined PBR problem. So the problem that we had was a PBR problem in the truest sense that it came from questions around a tool that was using in practice, the data was gathered from practice, and then we could influence the future practice from the results of the study. We had a strong initial partnership that was important, and also a benefit for the SLPs beyond just the partnership. Looking at the barriers, some of the themes that arose were negative emotion, a lack of communication. So although we had strong communication between our kind of our lead team at the school board, we could have done a better job of communicating with the larger group of SLPs. The distance between the partners, so ourselves and the SLPs, was difficult. Any type of lack of knowledge made it challenging, and then also adapting to change. So partway through the partnership, there was some staff turnover, and with staff turnover brings up different types of PBR questions and it can cause the project to shift. So next I'll go into some themes that arose and that we should consider when you're looking at initiating a partnership. So is there the need for the partnership? Next would be how to introduce the partnership. So something I've highlighted here is goal transparency. It was very important that for the DDSB, for the school board clinicians, that they understood what the goal of the project was. And it was not the researchers coming in to make changes or suggestions, but meet them where they were and answer the questions that they had. There were steps that the school board took prior to the partnership starting. There was credibility and confidence in both the SLPs and the researchers that was very important for the team. There were, once the partnership was starting to be initiated, there were steps that the school board took. Similarly, there were steps that we took at Western. And lastly, looking at the maintenance, so ongoing reassurance throughout the project. This involved kind of maintaining that confidence in both partners, looking at long-term engagement and how to support that, thinking about sustainability and the pace of the partnership. So something we realized with our partnership, it had a very quick kind of takeoff, and then we kind of had to reevaluate and say, okay, is this sustainable? What can be maintained and what needs to be changed to make it sustainable? And then lastly, reporting progress throughout became a theme that was very important for maintaining the partnership. So the value of collaborative approaches has been identified by many, and practice-based research is really a powerful approach to make changes in clinical practice. If you are engaging in these, some facilitators to consider are the importance of having a strong team, a well-defined practice-based research problem, and how to really start off with a strong initial partnership. Some barriers to consider might be a lack of communication and who do you need to be in communication with, and how are you going to adapt to change. When you're planning to initiate a partnership, think about how are you going to introduce the partnership and how are you going to instill confidence in everyone that you need to. And then lastly, thinking about maintenance. When you're thinking about that, you should build into the project sustainability checks as well as progress reporting throughout. Thank you so much for listening. I am happy to talk about the results further if anyone has any interest. And I'd also love to hear from anyone else if you've engaged in these PBR projects or you're looking to engage in these PBR projects. I'd be happy to chat. Thank you so much.